Frostblades in this upcoming patch has really gotten buffed, and we're going to go over how that is exactly. If you control F in the patch notes, you won't see any Frostblades buffs, but if you look very carefully, you can see that a lot of problems that the build had have actually been fixed, and not only is it much better in the early game, but it's also much less awkward at various points in the game. So we'll be able to do some stuff we haven't ever been able to do and just transition through all stages. If you look into my guide, some of this stuff won't even be relevant anymore, and I'll update that as soon as they update the POE. Hello, just woke up and I wanted to tack this onto the video. The new POE tree is on POE Planner. It's not yet on POB, and I'll update the build when it is. But I just wanted to show kind of a mock-up of what the new tree is going to look like. The most important thing here is for 13 points, we can get to multi-shot here, which has attack speed nodes for the small ones, and get our additional strike right away. We could have this as early as the end of Act 1 if we want. Otherwise, probably pick it up sometime in Act 2 or Act 3. This will increase our clear speed a lot. And because the small nodes are 4% attack speed, and we can path through around Life Raker here, we get a ton more attack speed in the early game and our additional strike. That'll make clear and also just whirling blades around much faster. Not only that, but now we have Mark the Prey with these very efficient small nodes as well, 20% damage with hits and ailments against marked enemies. So as soon as we get Mark on hit Assassin's Mark, which we can get as early as Act 4, we pick these up and we can start generating our frenzy charges. So that's really huge. The only real thing that we kind of have to go out of our way for now is this Mana Mastery for increased mana reservation efficiency. However, this should allow us to very easily run out all of our auras in combination with charisma. It's going to be a lot better than just the grace and precision reservation, and now we don't even need to run precision because of the accuracy mastery. So I just wanted to show off this tree. It's very tight, it's very good. The only downside is there's no longer a cold mastery for increased freeze duration. So before you start doing pinnacle bosses, you're going to have to either anoint Winter's Embrace or Breath of Rime, as well as probably having Southbound be more mandatory for quite a bit longer until you get high enough damage. Alternatively, you can actually use Impossible Escape with the Eldritch Battery, which will allow you to allocate both Winter's Embrace and Glacial Cage, which will give you a bunch of freeze duration and a bunch of damage as well. So very strong there. So if you are able to get an Impossible Escape, either from Farming Maven and Solo Self-Found, or buy one for the Eldritch Battery node, this jewel socket right here is a 1-point jewel. So for 3 points, we get all this freeze duration and this basically additional damage. It's more damage that'll stack with our shock and everything like that, as well as like Mark the Prey. So it isn't a huge more damage multiplier, but it is still pretty efficient for a point. So 3 points for those two major nodes seems very worthwhile to me. I just wanted to show this tree real quick, and I'll release the full thing and explain it more when the POB comes out. Enjoy the video. Alright, so first we're going to start off with the early game buffs. I'm going to go over a speculative early game buff, and then I'm going to go over the sure things that we actually know about. I just want to start off with talking about Prismatic Burst. It is a trigger gem, and apparently will trigger upon using an attack. So it's got possible utility for the early game. We don't know for sure that this is going to actually be a buff, but it is going to be something I test out. And Act 1 is the hardest part about Frostblades. I have been working out new methods to make Act 1 easier, and I'm going to put those in my updated build guide because I've improved my Act 1 clear time by a lot. Killing Brutus was always probably the hardest thing about starting off Frostblades, but now that won't be an issue anymore for at least one reason, that's for sure, and possibly another reason here as well if Prismatic Burst is really good. Another thing I want to talk about really quick for Prismatic Burst is if it actually procs, since it seems like it'll hit with all 3 elements. Orb of Storm. Storms. That means we could be adding Orb of Storms in the early game for the first act, possibly first couple of acts, in order to get those procs off and get the extra lightning damage, since we're scaling so much elemental damage in the beginning of our tree. Next, I want to talk about faster attacks. Faster attacks, normally you'd get it in Act 2, and you'd slap it on with Whirling Blades. Now, we're getting it in Act 1, before we kill Brutus. It's going to be a little bit lower, but it's still going to be very strong. They've lowered the starting amount of attack speed to 20% from 25%, and then it scales up to what it had previously. Now, the important thing about this is we get Whirling Blades right after Brutus, and a lot of times we're racing to get as much attack speed as soon as possible. Well, now we'll be able to kind of hold off on that and get some other good stuff. It is possible too that this is going to be better than another damage gem, so early on our 3-link might be Frostblades added cold damage faster attacks, and alternatively we might get another one of course and put it on Whirling Blades. This is really big and could potentially make things a lot stronger for us. The next thing I want to talk about is masteries. This is actually the biggest thing overall. Starting off right in alphabetical order, we have accuracy masteries. So one thing people have been complaining about is the loss of the precision, grace, determination, reservation masteries. However, there is a big swing to this, and I'll go over that in a little bit more detail, but we no longer have to run precision at all. So this is a new accuracy mastery. It says plus 500 accuracy rating and then -2 to accuracy per level. That means at lowest it's plus 300 accuracy rating. Previously in the build, you can see right here in the guide, I talk about running a low level precision and either accuracy on gear or the +3 accuracy per dex mastery. Dexterity is right around 200 at this point when I'm actually advising to do this. So at most we're getting about 200 accuracy. This means at that point we'll be getting 350 accuracy, and as you can see I've set it up already. So I have precision here, a level 2 precision, we have 100% accuracy. All I did was put plus 356 to accuracy rating because I have a set level 78. I'm not quite sure if I did that math right, but it'll be somewhere around about that point. So without this, if I remove this, we go down to 92% accuracy. Even with a level 2 precision, that'll be really big. That actually brings me to the next point here, mana masteries. And there are other masteries here, but we now have 12% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills on the mana mastery. This is actually enormous. If we go into the POB here, I have 12% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills, and if we just cut that out, you can see I'm at -4%, and with this I'm at 5%. I have gotten rid of the evasion mastery here, so if we click the grace reservation mastery, and if we go over here and remove this, we have a remaining mana of 18. Now, if we unclick this and throw that back in, we have a remaining mana of 36. I just took accuracy rating against unique enemies just as like a throwaway to kind of simulate. You can also put if you've killed recently, whatever, just to kind of simulate until we get the new POB. And what you'll be doing is you'll be getting this mana mastery. Early game as well, there is another new mastery, and I just put regenerate mana when you have Arcane Surge because that's not going to affect anything to kind of simulate it once again. But early on, you can actually take regenerate 5 mana per second when you don't need that yet. So we no longer have to have influence shields or a high level precision in order to get our full aura setup. This is huge. That means we get Herald of Ice, Hatred, and Grace all reserved very easily. But that's not all. There's more buffs in the masteries. There is these life masteries. Now, the life masteries are all really great, but what I'm looking at right here, we no longer need Elrion jewelry. I've advised to get Elrion jewelry. It's in the guide. I've talked about it quite a lot. We don't need that anymore. I'm not going to find it here, but skills cost life instead of 30% of mana cost. From what I understand, I believe that means it'll convert 30% of your mana cost into life cost. So I'm spending 48.43 mana per second on attacks and such. That should be reduced by 30%. It'll also reduce the mana spent on like Whirling Blades and on Frostblade, all of that kind of stuff. So everything will be much cheaper. Currently, we run Life Tap on Assassin's Mark, and if we pull this up, you can see that costs 192 every half a second. So that's a lot more impactful than 30% of 48 every second is going to be. And we more than make up for it with all of the life gain on hit and leech that we have from simply being a claw build. We have leech from this. So this is actually going to be really huge. Oh, and not only that, now we're going to be saving a ton of points. So previously, when we were leveling, I should have went over this in the leveling part, but if you go into the earlier level trees here, some of the earlier ones, let's go here, we come all the way down to Gladiator's Perseverance so that we can get the attack mastery where strike skills target one additional nearby enemy. So there is now cluster, passive tree clusters. There is now a new multi-shot cluster added to the northeast of the ranger's starting location. Shot grants attacks fire an additional projectile. That's not that impactful. Frostblades already will fire at that stage, whatever it is, 6 projectiles, so it'll only increase our clear by a little bit, which is helpful, don't get me wrong, but it's not that impactful. But the really impactful thing is, generally when we come down here, we take all of these extra points, an extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. We don't need to take that now. I don't know if this new attack mastery is going to be 3 passives or 4, but we're saving a bare minimum of 2 points just by this being added. If the small passives do nothing for us, that's still okay. That's absolutely fine. Presumably they'll do something, but if they don't, it's not a big problem whatsoever. So we can spend those extra points to go up and get the mana mastery, or to get a jewel socket earlier if we get a good jewel. Like, there's a lot of extra ways we can spend those points. We'll get extra damage to make up for not going down here, and that's going to be very big. And the most important part of it is that we're going to get an additional strike much earlier. Before, we would beeline down there, maybe just grab like acuity and charisma, and just, you know, book it down there. Like, if you look at the first couple of levels here, we're shooting down there, we're shooting down this way, grabbing Life Raker, and then the next one, the next thing we do is we're heading down there, and we don't end up getting down there until pretty late, basically. So we're not going to get that additional strike for quite a long time, and that becomes a little bit of an issue. But now we're going to be able to get it really early on. So really big upgrade there, and it saves us some points in the long run, which will be very, very helpful. In addition to that, we have some potential upgrades here as far as anoints. So there's a couple of new notables being put in, Winter's Embrace and Glacial Cage. The Winter's Embrace provides 60% increased freeze duration on enemies and 30% increased damage if you've shattered an enemy recently. Depending on what kind of oils this takes, this would be an amazing anoint for early game as soon as we get our Heat Shiver. A Leech Mastery. This one is huge. A lot of times we would kind of initially pick up Clever Thief and then later just use a Claw Mastery to get Life Leech, which I actually should probably check really quick if the Claw Mastery still has Leech. It looks like it actually doesn't, but it does give instant Leech, and it does give higher gain on kills. So we're going to have to take the Leech anyway. But now we have some interesting stuff like 10% of Leech's instant per equipped Claw. Inherent attack speed bonus from dual wielding is doubled if you have 2 claws. That could be really fun. And then 60% increased damage against enemies that are on low life. Obviously, we're going to take the Nightblade one, but the instant leech might be worthwhile, or we just don't take that. And instead, we spend the extra point getting Clever Thief, and we just have the Nightblade mastery for the claw. Then we have this cool Leech mastery now, there. Okay, so we have a couple of really good ones. First of all, there's another 10% of Leech's instant, so we can get up to 20% of our Leech instant. Our leech rate is with this example stuff right here at like red maps, it's 897, about 900. So we'd be looking at an additional 180 life gain on hit, and then our mana leech rate, we'd be looking at like 20, almost 23 additional mana gained on hit, which once again is way more than the mana cost. We might not even need the minus Elrion jewelry, so that's really, really huge if we took both of those masteries. And the increased armor and evasion while leeching is very good as well. So there's some really nice stuff there now, and then there's the increased leech rate as well. We have some other interesting stuff here on top of that. Critical strikes against you do not inherently inflict elemental ailments is kind of interesting, but probably not something we would take because there's actually a much better one on a different mastery. But yeah, the one we mainly took was exposure and reduced elemental reflect when we took this as well. As far as the cold stuff, we just have chance to inflict cold exposure on hit with cold damage. 10%, we attack really, really fast, so that's going to be potentially huge. Chills from your hits always reduce action speed by at least 10%. That means the amount of increased cold duration we would need in order to reach a max chill would be reduced. Our damage is so high we probably wouldn't need that. But the big one is enemies permanently take 5% increased damage for each second they've ever been frozen by you, up to a maximum of 50%. That is an additional 50% shock if you've done a total of 10 seconds worth of freezes across the fight. In Pinnacle boss fights, this could be quite easy to do, especially with all the increased freeze duration. Pinnacle bosses don't look like they're frozen, but they do get frozen. It's just kind of on the back end because they can't have their action speed moved to 0. We would potentially have this all the time. We could just have basically double shock all the time. That's really, really, really huge. So there are some absolutely insane masteries for the build. There's some, I think, new evasion masteries as well. 15% chance to suppress spell damage if equipped helmet, body armor, gloves, and boots all have evasion rating. That's the plan anyway. So 15% spell suppression for 1 point is actually really, really big. That's the only new one. It replaced the Grace Reservation Mastery. That's pretty nice. And I think other than, yeah, there's new Mark Masteries as well. All of which are also very good, but we would need the increased chance to gain a frenzy charge when you hit your marked enemy. We'll have to see how good the second Mark Mastery or Mark Cluster in the area is going to be for that. The next one, new Spell Suppression Mastery. So, downside on the Spell Suppression Mastery is that there's no longer increased crit chance by your spell suppression chance. That sucks. However, there's some cool ones here. Suppressed spell damage cannot inflict elemental ailments on you. So, a lot of the damage in general we're going to be taking is from spells because we have such a high evasion and also stack some block on the build. So we're not going to be taking that much damage at all from attacks, generally speaking. This will make us basically ignite and shock immune for the most part. Occasionally we might get hit by a lightning attack or a fire attack, but 90% of the time, probably higher than 90, probably like 95 or 99% of the time, taking this mastery will make us immune to shock and ignite. We're already immune to freeze because we're a trickster. So this is really, really huge. It could also make us immune to things like Scorch as well as Brittle, which could potentially be inflicted upon us as well by like special abilities. Frostblades is going to be A, smoother, and B, stronger. All of the growing pains and transitions we had are basically gone. So it is going to be just so easy to transition all through the game. As soon as I get the new POE, I'll update that, and we'll get the new like fresh step-by-step guide out for everyone. Hope you enjoy. Looking forward to the upcoming league. Ooh, bump the table. Looking forward to the upcoming league, and I hope you are too. And hey, there's a bunch of cool stuff that could potentially be on those weapons in the new league and shields as well. So I'll see you next time. Bye.